Good evening, everyone, and welcome out to Speed Racing Network, where we present the BlueGrass 195 here from Kentucky Speedway. My name is Sean Griffith. I am here with Brandon Domain. Brandon, how's it going tonight, buddy?
It is going fantastic. Ready to get the second race of this opening round out of the way for these Cup guys, as this season just moving through real quick, and we're getting close to that first cut to make it to our round of 10. But how you doing tonight?
Man, it is a great night. I've been looking forward to this race all week because the first two races we had here were just absolutely fantastic. The Truck Series, the Xfinity Series did a great job, and they really kept it on the track and kept it green. And now here we are with the even better drivers out there on the track. This should be a really fun one.
Yeah, and if it's anything like last season's race here, when we had even more drivers, it was at the very start of the season. Only one caution in this race last season for the same amount of laps. The 135 we're going to be running tonight. This track just brings really clean racing because of how wide it is, how many options you have. It's easy to avoid mistakes that are going on around you because there's so much space out there, and the way that you have to work around this track just brings you those really long runs that we saw on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we just had that little bit of, you like that drama, had that little bit of a caution that would come out late in the race and just bunch everything back up and make things real exciting at the end. I think we'll probably see a lot more of the same here on the Cup Series tonight.
And drama is what we are all about here in the Cup Series, especially just because we've got such great drivers out there and we have so much money on the line that drama is sure to follow. And it's coming here to Kentucky here tonight. Again, 130 laps here tonight. No fast repairs. It is just run with what you brung. Everybody runs the same stuff. Let's get it done.
Yeah, and that's always interesting. You know, the no fast repairs makes it a little bit tougher. Here for the Cup Series, these guys are used to that. That's been the thing for a while now. In the Xfinity Series, this was the first season that we had no fast repairs, and you could tell it changes the way that some of the guys have driven from one season to the next. But here in this one, as much space as there is, it kind of lends to, if there is trouble, somebody, or if not multiple people, are going to have heavy damage, and that no fast repair could come into play there should we have one of those early wrecks with people getting aggressive and feeling that adrenaline early.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of questions are going to be answered here tonight. Can Next Level keep it going as strong as what they've been doing? Can James Holtzer continue to pull away from the pack? Can Scott Healy, last season's champion, can he come back and win another championship? Everything's going to be figured out.
Oh, for sure. And the big thing tonight, too, is we got 16 drivers in the field. The next round is the round of 10. We got 6 drivers that are trying to either move their way in tonight or have that ability to know that they're only a couple of points away and they still control their own destiny. Even if they're outside of the cut entering the race, they go out there and win next week. All of a sudden, they've got the points to move in no matter what. So this is all about positioning yourself for next week's race at Auto Club.
Definitely, and here in the Cup Series, we have fixed setups. We go for 20 weeks, no fast repairs, $15 a week to get in. So, you know, nothing to kind of sniff at here. It's some decent money on the line, but first place gets $1,000. So that is the big money out there. But we also have those weekly payouts as well. And then, as always, the team championships. A lot of people love that aspect of our league so much because a lot of leagues don't do it.
No, there's very few leagues that do a team championship along with individual championships, just like there's very few that do a weekly and a season payout. So it's a high entry fee each week of $15 compared to what you see in a lot of places, but the money that you can get in return is just so much higher than you'll see in a lot of leagues. And there's a whole lot of different ways that you can pick up some extra money.
Man, I mean, I was in a bowling league for a long time that I paid $23 a week to get into that thing. It took less time than this broadcast takes, and I definitely got paid out a lot less on the bowling side as well. So, I mean, this is just another one of those hobbies. Everybody's going to call it a hobby, but it can turn into something nice and big if you do really well. But those race payouts there, $45 for the win, $30 for second place, $15 for third, fourth, and fifth place.
And we've seen a couple of guys have, win after win this season, and they're sitting there. They already made back what they've put in, or what the entry fee for the entire season would be. They've already won that just from the weekly payouts. That's how impressive that some of these guys have been. But either way, it's a big win for some of these guys that maybe sit around that 10th to 15th position a lot of the weeks, and you see the excitement that people have when they get a 3rd, 4th, or 5th place finish. They get their money back, and it's not even, oh man, I made money tonight. It's, got the money back. That makes it a little bit extra special for getting that top 5 for some of the guys that haven't been up there so much.
Yeah, and then as you get along in the season and you keep making these little payouts here, you start pushing your way towards these big old season payouts. And like we said, $1,000 for first place, but second place $600, third place $350, fourth place $200, fifth place $125. So not bad there either.
No, not at all. And if you show up for every single race, even if you don't make anything on the weekly payouts, it's $300 worth of entry fees right there. So you make that championship race, you're making back right about half of it, even if you take last place out of the 5 drivers in that race. But if you don't make the championship 5, but you're in that round of 10 that we're about to determine here next week in Auto Club, and you take the top 3 out of those 5 drivers, you're going to be walking away with some money this season too, which is new for this season. 6th place getting 100, 7th place getting 75, and 8th place getting 50.
Yeah, I love expanding those payouts because not only do you have to watch just those 5 guys on the track that are going after the top prizes, but you also have to be concerned about the next 5 guys that were eliminated also, so that way they have some money. Then we have the team playoff championship. We have all sorts of stuff going on. It's just so much fun, and I mean, truthfully, it's one of those things where if you're out there watching, you can sit back and just grab a beer, and that leads us right into our Beer Street Journal Beer of the Week, sponsored by BeerStreetJournal.com. This week's Beer Street Journal Beer of the Week comes out of Creature Comforts Brewing Company in Georgia. Creature Comforts has a year-round IPA called Tropicalia that has truly made a name for itself over the years. To build on that popularity, Creature Comforts has released a few variations of Tropicalia, like Tropicalisma and Double Dry Hop Trop. But this week's Beer of the Week, Imperial Trop Haze, is truly the icing on a very hoppy cake. Trop Haze is built on the same base as Tropicalia with Citra, Centennial, and Galaxy hops, but it's way hazier and much bolder with 8% alcohol by volume. So be on the lookout for Imperial Trop Haze Double IPA hitting the shelves later this month. The Beer of the Week is sponsored by BeerStreetJournal.com, the leading online publication for craft beer reviews. Go to BeerStreetJournal.com to find your next great beer. And as always, you must be 21 to enjoy, and please drink responsibly. That's right, the Beer of the Week, Creature Comforts Brewing Company. Love that Imperial Tropical Haze there. Not a bad thing if you're taking the best beer you have and then kind of sprouting off from it. It's a good way to do things.
And Creature Comforts puts together some great beers. They're pretty local to where I am now. I've been there actually once to visit them as, kind of going through those Athens breweries. There's a couple of them out there that are really strong. But Creature Comforts, really good beer, so I'll be keeping my eye out on this one when it comes out.
Definitely. Now let's get on to the team playoff brackets here. And really a lot of good things shaping up here. I love the 4-5 matchup. That is going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. But Next Level Motorsports and Tank Racing, obviously they got their buys because they were so good during the regular season. But Murray Reedy Motorsports, they get Striker Motorsports in the first round. Striker's only had one driver in the past couple of weeks. So Murray Reedy looks pretty good in that one. But look at the Rev Racing versus R&D Motorsports matchup.
Oh, that's definitely going to be the star of the show here in this opening round of the team format, just because of how close it is. They're bringing full driver lineups each week so far, it seems, and that's been the telltale story for this race. They're two very evenly matched teams, and they're both stepping up to the plate here against each other, and that's going to go a long way in this battle. Really excited to see how it plays out the next 2 weeks.
Well, let's go through each one of these matchups. So, of course, Next Level Motorsports gets the bye, but we still kind of take a look and see how they did. Last week they were only 3 points short of a maximum team points week. So how rare is that?
That's absolutely incredible. And there was a time during that race that we were talking about a possible 1 through 5 sweep for Next Level Motorsports. It nearly happened. They were one driver away from pulling that off, as they had, I want to say it was 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 as their finishing positions, which is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, they have been just stellar the entire season, but getting that first, second, and third place, I mean, really the only thing that stopped them from getting the max points was one of them had an incident, and then one of them did not lead the most laps, and then one of them did not lead a lap. So just really, really insane. But Tank Racing, who also gets the bye, they're not doing too shabby themselves. Now, of course, this is just in the first round here where they don't have anybody going against them, but they have been stellar all season also.
And this was a pretty telltale week for Tank Racing, where it was just a good, solid run. They kept themselves out of trouble, and they wound up getting multiple drivers inside the top 10. They had the ability to get up there a few more spots. The way that the race played out and some strategy things played out kind of dropped a couple spots near the end of that race. But still, you're looking at an 8th, a 10th, and an 11th for their 3 drivers. If you're anybody that's looking to advance, if you're Rev'd, if you're R&D, if you're Murray, Reedy, or Stryker, you're looking at Tank and you're looking at Next Level going, I don't know if I want to face them next week.
Yeah, well, they're not going to have a choice once we get to the semifinals here, but take a look at Max Service there, 11th place. Not only did he gain the 30 points, that helps his team out, obviously, but at the same time, he got that playoff lucky dog as well, so now Tank Racing has even more to race for.
Without question. And for Max, I mean, that's a huge thing. We'll talk about him more here in a little bit, but man, he's got a lot of momentum going for him.
Take a look at Murray Reedy versus Stryker Motorsports, and we already said Stryker's only had one driver in the past 3 weeks, basically. So 2 weeks, I'm sorry, in the past 2 weeks. But either way, when you have the defending champion coming in 4th place, it's going to be tough to beat that to begin with.
Yeah, and this is almost like the equivalent of a 2-man advantage in hockey. Murray Reedy, I mean, they can sit there and just be conservative if they're just looking at the team side of things and not really have to risk a whole lot. Now, they do have a little bit of that playoff incentive on the individual side as well. So obviously that's going to be a thing. But it's one of those things like in this team format, you're only going against one guy, and just 1 against 3 is not going to work out for Stryker, sad to say, as I know we're both pretty well affiliated with them here in our time in SRN.
Well, next up, we got the really big matchup, Rev Racing versus R&D Motorsports. Both of these teams only have 3 drivers, but when all 3 of those drivers on each team show up, they're pretty even.
Oh, yeah, and the thing is, they're all showing up. It's 3 against 3, and the nice thing is they're all running rather well. I mean, you can look at, you see a 17, 19, 20, 23rd, things like that in a field that I believe it was 32 drivers last week, I want to say. Maybe I'm a little bit off on that, but they still had solid runs in that race, and they just don't make many mistakes on the track, so you're not going to see anybody just really fall apart and hold the team back a whole lot. You're going to see a lot of solid runs from these drivers.
All right, well, that is the team side of things, but let's take a look at the individual side of things. James Holtzer leading the way out there just as he's done pretty much all season long, but Timothy Latham, with back-to-back wins, has moved all the way up to 2nd place.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Next Level sitting in 4 of the top 5 spots, and then the defending champion Scott Healy sitting in that 4th position. But keep your eye right where that green turns to yellow. Dean Brummett 2 points clear of Reese Shaver and Joshua Balliet, and then 1 point behind them is their teammate Max Service. So you got 3 Tank Racing guys all just outside of moving into the top 10, and they all have a lot of momentum on their side.
Definitely, and nothing is finished yet at all. They still have this race and 1 more race to go, so they've got time to get back into it. They just need good, solid finishes, and we've talked about it before. Points racing is so different than single racing, and points racing, you just have to have a good finish. You don't have to win, but a lot of these guys, they go out there and they try to win, and they make a mistake and fall all the way backwards. So just don't make any mistakes. Get out there, get your 4th, 5th, 6th place finish, whatever it is. That will move you up the charts. But let's talk about each one of these. James Holtzer is not the guy that is not going to go for the win because he already has a ton of them this season. He's got 5 wins in the first 14 weeks. And so he average start of 5th, average finish of 3rd. So definitely he is the leader outright.
An incredible season for him and an incredible past couple weeks for Timothy Latham. Back-to-back wins here in these last two races, including that playoff opener last week, and that's really boosted his average finish, which is now as low as 9th place on the average finish. Came into this with 20 bonus points, but that win moved him all the way up into that second spot and sitting really clear of that 11th position with 2 races left in the round.
You know, when we talk about Landon Lacey, you just think about all the big wins that he has had. And he's had 3 of them this season, but right now in the point standing, he's the 3rd best on his team. I'll tell you right now, from Landon Lacey's point of view, he does not like that idea. He wants to be the best. He wants to be the best on his team, on the track, everywhere else. With an average start of 6th, an average finish of 4th, he's got the ability to do that. He just has to have 1 or 2 more big races in order to bump himself up in that list.
Somebody else looking to make that charge up to that 1 or 2 spot is the defending champion, Scott Healy. And bit of a quiet regular season for him until he kind of broke free a little bit here late, picking up a lot of momentum, which really mirrored what he did last season. And now he sees himself sitting 4th in the point standings after that first race in the opening round. He's 11 points clear of 11th, so still a lot of work to do, but the defending champion very good when it comes to playoff time.
Someone else that kind of has that Scott Healy feeling out there is Nick Gowen. And remember, Scott Healy last year was kind of quiet throughout the season and then came on really strong. Nick Gowen did the exact same thing. He was kind of quiet throughout the season. Best finish of 2nd, but that best finish came last week when we started the playoffs. Before that, his best finish was 4th. And so he is peaking at the right time. Don't forget his name because you're going to see it a lot in these playoffs.
If there was a most improved driver from last season to this season, my vote would definitely be for Seth Berger, who sits in the 6th position, 2,044.7 ahead of the cut line, and he has that best finish of 2nd, still looking to get that first win. But if you look at the way that he has jumped up in progression from last season, it has just been night and day, and just a consistent top 5 contender here this season, and he's going to be knocking on that door for that first win here pretty soon.
You know, if you want to talk about a really consistent driver, but also kind of a curious driver here, Gabriel Ellison. Last season, he went all 20 races being in the top 10. Never missed a top 10, and he was the cleanest driver out there. This season, he's struggled a bit. He's got a best finish of 2nd place, yes, but he has also really struggled to put those races together. But now that he finds himself in the playoffs, if he can just get back to clean Gabriel, just consistent Gabriel, I really think that he's going to be in the finals.
Another guy to keep an eye on is going to be Scott Colal, who's starting to build momentum himself. Had a bit of a rough moment here and there over the past few weeks, but his best finish being 3rd. When he gets a clean race, he has been a significant threat for a top 5, top 10 finish for most of those races. And here in this first round, that's what you need, top 10s. So he enters this one 6 points ahead of the cut line in 8th. Keep your eye on Scott Colal. I think this is going to be his kind of race tonight.
See, David Duke really loves these 1.5 mile tracks also, and he showed it last week. He was really up towards the front for most of that race. Keep in mind that David Duke has the experience of a NASCAR official out there. You're going to need that experience when you get into playoff time, and here he is. So don't sleep on David Duke.
Another guy that loves the 1.5 miles is Dean Brummett, and if you go back to last season's race here in Kentucky, 4 leaders in that race. Dean Brummett was one of them, leading 9 laps. He did take a 10th place finish, started 2nd, spent a good amount of time up near the front of the pack though. I think tonight's going to be a good night for the guy that's sitting on the bubble just 2 points clear.
Now going outside the cut, Reese Schaefer is 2 points below the cut right now, and he really needs to get moving on that. But because he has his tank teammates all around them, and all of them need good finishes, I have a feeling we're going to see a good, consistent, clean race out of Reese and his teammates. With the best finish of 3rd here so far, I really think he can beat that before this season is over.
Well, you mentioned those tank teammates. Another one is Joshua Balliet. Also has a best finish this season of 3rd, average finish of 12th, and that kind of showed with that starting bonus points just being at 4, which is one of the lower ones out of these 16 drivers. But he does consistently put together good finishes. Occasionally gets a little bit snake bit here and there, but you normally see that 7 car running in the top 5.
This season's playoff lucky dog, Max Service, had an 11th place finish last week. His best finish on the season is 9th, but man, he got that 11th place finish when he desperately needed it. Now he is in the playoffs. Now let's see what he can do now that he's only 3 points outside the cut.
Dalton Tucker is probably the sleeper pick for a lot of guys here in this one because of how fast he is on the track. Just a really strong racer, has had some rough luck here and there, but keep your eyes on that 73 car because if he gets out in front at any point, he might pull away and might be a huge factor here moving up.
Next up, Kyle Benson from Reedy Motorsports. Best finish of second place. His average start and average finish are pretty close with 14th and 13th. Now, if he keeps going 14th and 13th here in this first round of the playoffs, I think he'll actually make it through. But in the next rounds, he is going to need something bigger, something better than that.
And bringing up the rear of the field right now, but still only 14 points out, is Michael Politis out of New York. He has a third place finish as his best one this season. Average finish being 15th, which is a little bit curious and a little bit worrisome for him. And he's going to be starting near the back of the field tonight, so he's got his work cut out for him to make up on that gap.
Well, let's get out there on the track. Only 22 drivers here tonight. So really, there's going to be a struggle for points. Points are going to come at a premium here tonight. But Seth Berger from Tank Racing and his teammate Reese Schaefer from Tank Racing make up the front row there.
And row number 2, we're going to have our points leader, James Holtzer, starting in the third position. Dalton Tucker going to be starting near the front, which might be a little dangerous for everybody else, as he's going to be in that fourth spot. Raul Meza with his best start of the season, as far as I can recall, at least in fifth place, starting inside row 3. Outside row 3 is going to be Scott Kalal in the 23.
Yeah, Timothy Latham will start in the seventh position for Next Level Motorsports. Dean Brummett, as an independent, will start in 8th. His former teammate Scott Healy from Reedy Motorsports will start in 9th. Max Service, our playoff lucky dog this season, will start in 10th. Landon Lacey from Next Level Motorsports will be in 11th, and Joshua Balliet from Tank Racing will start off this race in 12th. Whew, man, we've got it going on already here tonight. They are lined up. They are about ready to go. Brandon, I'm going to give you the first pick of the night, buddy. Who you got?
Well, you know what? It's normally the safe play that when the money keeps coming in from the house, you just stick with what works. Past couple weeks, I've gone with Timothy Latham. It's worked well. Back-to-back wins. I can't not pick the 5 car to pull off a three-peat just because it's been pretty consistent, pretty successful in the run the past couple weeks. So I'll stick with that 5 car.
You know what? I'm going to go back just one spot from you. I'm going to go with Dean Brummett here because Dean Brummett, again, one of the most consistent racers you'll see. And consistency and tire saving is exactly what you need on a 1.5 mile track with only 22 drivers with not a lot of room for cautions. So I really think that Dean Brummett just takes that consistent car all the way up front and wins this race.
And hey, you know, we wound up taking the 2 guys that led the most laps in this race last season. That's going to go a long way because this is a quote-unquote cookie-cutter looking track, but it handles so different from like a Las Vegas or a Chicago or a Kansas. This is a whole lot more grittier. You have to wind up spending a lot more time off the throttle, especially in 3 and 4. It just reacts so differently from those other tracks. It's also a lot flatter than a Vegas or a Kansas, so it just works differently. That experience of being up in front, having good runs here at Kentucky is going to go a long way.
It looks like Gabriel Ellison missed the start, and looks like maybe Raul Meza did as well. Yeah, Raul Meza is going to start off in the pits. Gabriel Ellison missed the start as well, so he is going to start off in the pits if he gets started at all. So big movement there.
Yeah, it looks like Gabriel Ellison actually got disconnected from the server before qualifying.
Well, here we go. Pace cars off. Seth Berger and Reese Schaefer are going to wait for that green flag, and then they are going to take off. James Holtzer all up on the bumper of Seth Berger already.
Yeah, he was all over that bumper, but there was no intimidation there for the man in the 77 of Seth Berger with a great jump into turn 1. Not as strong of a lead as we've seen from some on the first man to take the green flag and lead them to the start of the race, but still a solid jump that he got. Good run going into 1. He's going to hold on to the lead down the backstretch into turn 3.
Oh, Timothy Latham gets a little bump there from Scott Healy back there in about 4th and 5th place. But it looks like James Holtzer is going to pull up into 2nd, and he is going to go down to the inside to try to take 1st away from Seth Berger.
And lap 1 will go to the points leader, James Holtzer, by 1,000th of a second. He'll take the first bonus point of the night. Not that he needs too many of them, but he will lead that first lap. And he's got Seth Berger right behind him in 2nd. And they're starting to line up here pretty good, all the way back to Max Service and Landon Lacey racing for 9th and 10th.
Yeah, this is exactly how the other 2 races went, where there's a lot of good racing for the first 3 or 4 laps, and then everybody kind of gets lined up and gets in there for the long haul. So that's what we're looking at here tonight.
Said they got straightened out for a good bit, and then we start seeing more and more side-by-side. Oh, we got trouble in turn 2. Max Service around. It picks up Joshua Balliet in the 7.
Emerson
and a
Ardon
few
involved
more.
as well.
Emerson Ardon. Oh, man. He got sideways in turn 1 and just almost blocked the entire top half of the track. Looks like Jordan Saylor's in the 55 in this as well. So 4 or 5 cars picked up on this opening caution on lap 3 as we had trouble in turn 1.
Well, let's go back because they were 3 wide. It was Dean Brummett, Scott Kowal, and Max Service going 3 wide into the corner. Let's find out what happened after that.
So not too uncommon to see 3 wide down the front straightaway. You can make that work, and they just all kind of ran into the same spot. Ooh, heavy contact for Landon Lacey there as well. Oh, wow, he got into the inside wall also. Good job by Michael Politis to get his way through that. But it definitely looked like 3 wide, that you can make that work here, but they just kind of gave a little too little space to each other there, kind of leaned into it a little too much, and really they didn't have to make it that tight, especially this early. You can run the high line. I would have liked to see more space there, but that's 3 wide racing. Sometimes you just pinch it a little bit more than you need to.
And David Duke looks like he drove. Oh, he got a little bit of damage there. From the wall, so he's going to get through there, but he is definitely going to have to get something fixed. But that is where we're at now after that caution. So it looks like Max Service in the pits, definitely trying to see if anybody else decided to go in immediately. Nobody else did. Raul Meza just got out of the pits from starting in the pit area. So, but we will see how many of these cars stay in pit road for an extended amount of time to get some damage fixed. I think Landon Lacey is going to have to. He got big hits on both sides.
And that's going to be a worrisome spot for him. You know, you look at every time and there's a playoff run, whether it be real life or sim racing, there's always one guy that just has this big point total at the start of a run and then starts making it a little bit more dangerous than they need to make it for whatever reason. And Landon Lacey kind of looking like he might be in that position here tonight. Thankfully for him, only 22 cars on the track, so it's not going to be a big point loss. But that's a tough position to be in where, you know, it wasn't the greatest run last week at times. He did find himself back up towards the front, had a good finish to it. But it was kind of sitting around that 10th position most of the race, and then here tonight getting caught up in this one right out of the gate. He's going to start for a long night here for somebody that's been real dominant this season.
Well, back up front, James Holtzer is going to have that lead, and that is all important for him. Anytime that he is up in the lead, it is just so tough to catch him. And so anytime there is a wreck out there and, you know, it gives everybody behind him a chance to catch up. But he is so strong when he's got clean air.
It just comes down to confidence with him. You can tell when he's out in front, it's just almost like breath of relief. Race is on. If anybody can catch me, more power to them. He just runs his race. And it's so hard to pass somebody when they just keep hitting their line consistently. They don't make mistakes. And that's what's described James Holtzer this season, why he leads the league in wins and why he's the points leader coming into not only the playoffs, but into this race as well.
Well, going back to what we were talking about, Max Service still in the pits getting fixed. Landon Lacey spent about 1 minute, 10 seconds in there to get some damage repaired. Byron McDonald about the same amount of time. Joshua Balliet about the same amount of time. Emerson Ardon spent 50 seconds in there to get kind of cleaned up. And Scott Kalal spent about 25 seconds in there. So Definitely a lot of damage out there for this first caution. Now we're going to get bunched up and do it all over again.
And if you look at it, Scott Kalal, Landon Lacey, Max Service, Joshua Balliet, all playoff drivers that are having some damage here. Max Service going to be 1 lap down. He's the only one to go a lap down, though, so his hope is going to be that a quick caution comes back out. Once he gets back out there, he is still in position for the lucky dog, as behind him is only Travis Trevelyan, who's 3 laps down. So as long as Max can get back out here in the next lap or so under this caution, he would be in position to pick up that lucky dog when the next caution comes out.
Well, keep in mind for all those viewers out there, if you look in our scoring tower, the green numbers mean that you're inside the playoff top 10. The yellow numbers mean you're outside the playoff top 10, but still in contention for the playoffs. The red numbers mean you are not in the playoffs. And so just kind of keep that in mind, where right now you've got Dalton Tucker, who is currently slotted outside the top 10. He is positioned up there in third, along with Reese Schaefer in fourth. So those two could sincerely use a big points night here tonight.
And Schaefer only 2 points out, Tucker only 6 points out, and Dean Brummett sitting there just 2 points to the good. David Duke 3 points to the good, and we saw David Duke pick up a little bit of damage to the inside, off the inside wall, avoiding that accident. So we'll have to see how that pans out to him, as you see him there in the polka dot car on the outside, about 7 rows back. So we'll have to see if there's any damage to his car that might affect his night, but he's going to be in a precarious position here early.
Yes, he is, and Timothy Latham, our back-to-back winner, is up in 5th place now. So he is making a run on his outside. Last season's champ, Scott Healy, making his run to the front. He's up 3 positions.
Yeah, good starts for both of them. We saw Timothy Latham make a huge run out of turn 1 and 2 on that opening lap. Kind of got a little too deep into turn 3 and lost some of that ground that he made up. But a huge start for him. We'll see if he can recreate that on this first restart of the night.
Well, we are going right back at it here as James Holtzer takes off, gets a good little jump. And it looks like Dalton Tucker on the inside is going to try to follow him through.
Certainly looks like it pays to be on the inside here tonight on these starts and restarts, because that is the second time we've seen that inside line just really pull forward, and it's going to be a 1-2-3 for the inside guys starting that restart here on lap 8, as it's Holtzer, Tucker, and Latham took the restart in 1, 3, and 5 positions. They're going to be 1-2-3 coming out of turn 4.
Yeah, Latham continuing his push forward, as well as Dean Brummett back there in 6th position right now. Scott Healy fell back to 7th on that restart, but don't worry, he will be back up front in no time.
No question there, as we're starting to still see that side-by-side going from 3rd on back. Nobody really getting stretched out here this time around. And still, I mean, you can make that work. There's plenty of space out there, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it. The only thing I would worry about is if you spend too much time side by side, it really does start wearing out on those tires. If you start getting too aggressive trying to make a pass or hold on to position for too long.
Yeah, Austin Reedy up there with his teammate Craig Lautenslugger and their teammate Scott Healy right in front of them. So they're trying to get lined up as teammates to get something done out there on the track, possibly some drafting, some sort of help, any help that can be done to catch James Holtzer here at the front.
Oh, close racing there as they get sorted out single file all the way back through the top 10 now. So maybe everybody kind of just thinking, let's settle in. As I say that, Seth Berger goes up towards the outside and Timothy Latham gets the nose to the inside. See how that works out. There's an interesting layer to this where that outside line does get a good bit of momentum. But here at this track, it's not so much faster. It's not so much of a help being on the outside because of the way that you have to take these turns. That inside line just moves so much quicker around here.
James Holtzer, Dalton Tucker are making it work. Timothy Latham on the inside of Seth Berger. As it gets to the turn, Timothy kind of washes up the track just a little bit, forcing Seth Berger, it looked like, to back off a little bit, but Seth gets a great run on the outside.
Yeah, I think Latham really had to take out the throttle just a little bit after he clipped the apron, and that kind of pushed him up the track a groove, and it's still so early. You don't want to put anybody in that bad position, so I'm very certain that he had to crack out of the throttle a pretty good bit, lost all that momentum, and now you see him really starting to fall back into the rest of this pack here in the top 10, trying to get that momentum back. Looks like he's got that now as he gets back to the inside in turn 1, and everything looks like it's gone back to normal there for Latham in the 5.
Yeah, right behind Latham, Scott Healy, last season's champion, racing with his grandmother on the hood of the car, just as he has all season long, dedicating this entire season to her. And basically, he has said multiple times that she just feels like she is in the car with him when he's doing so well.
Yeah, just a classy touch from a classy driver, just a really good racer here, obviously a defending champion, but just his style on the track doesn't really ruffle feathers, doesn't really do a whole lot that goes wrong for him, doesn't make mistakes, and that's how he won that championship last season. Just a dominant performance in Texas where he just made 0 mistakes that entire race, and really the entire playoff last season was just about as flawless as you could get. Really kept himself out of trouble, didn't have many missteps, and even if he did, they were very small ones. So just this is what he's trying to recreate, is that magic he had last season, off to a real good start at doing that.
Yeah, he is a very unassuming person, and what I mean by that is, I met him in person in Nashville when Speed Racing Network went to the Nashville Super Speedway so we could watch the race there. And he just wasn't the type of person I expected. I expected, being the champion, that he would come in kind of cocky, kind of arrogant, all that stuff. No, man, he was the nicest, most down-to-earth guy you've ever met.
And I mean, that probably goes to a lot of the success that he's had, is just being able to have that mindset, being able to have that humble mentality, and just being that grinder. That's really what he was last season. And just to be that calm influence, calming force there, just not a lot gets to him on the track. And you can see that would be his personality as well. And just as you see him going around Timothy Latham here, that'll be for the 4th position, pulling Dean Brummett with him. Just a very calm, cool, collected driver, and this is the time of year where people start forcing things. People start making mistakes. If you stay calm behind that wheel, it's going to help you out a whole lot in the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be a really good word for Scott Healy, calm. That's just his personality, and it works really, really well for him as he is looking at the 3rd position here shortly. But James Holtzer still leads this thing as he has since lap 1.
Yeah, he still leads it, but now we might have a change for 2nd place, as now Seth Berger and Dalton Tucker side by side. Scott Healy trying to figure out which one he wants to help out and get behind, as you see where that door opens for him to possibly pick up the 3rd position, as Tucker gets that good run on the inside of 1 and 2. A little bit more momentum for Seth Berger on the outside, as these tires are starting to wear. That inside will start to lose a little bit of that extra momentum that it can pick up on the exit of turns. And a little bit of contact there between Dean Brummett and Austin Reedy in the 1. Close racing there as they go 3 wide into turn 1. They're going to sort itself out as Timothy Latham's going to back out on the outside.
Wow, you would think that this deep into the run that they would kind of settle down a little bit, but no, everybody wants every position they can possibly get. Like we said before, points are at an extreme premium here tonight with only 22 drivers on the track.
And this is a tough balance. You know, on Thursday in the Xfinity race, I got to experience how much tire fall off there was. Now, there's more downforce, there's more grip with these cars, so it's not going to be as significant as it was on Thursday from what I got to experience. However, it's still going to be a heavy fall off, and really saving your tires is an art form getting around Kentucky, just because of how much it wants to eat away at the tires. The surface is just so gritty, and just the track is so flat. It just takes so much of that tire strength away over the course of the run. So there's that interesting balance that you have to have. So we're seeing a lot of aggressive passing, a lot of aggressive 3-wide racing at times. That's going to be something that really haunts these guys if they push it too much once we get another 10 laps into the final 10 laps of this run.
Yeah, so far our biggest mover is Austin Reedy back here in 5th. Started off in the 14th position, has made his way all the way up into the top 5, and now he is pushing for even more as he gets right behind Scott Healy.
I really like the line that he takes, even with somebody on his outside. Just has this good swinging apex that he goes for. Kind of takes that apex a little bit later than everybody else, which really will do a good job at saving those tires. And you can watch him. He's still just now getting to that yellow line, and that's just past halfway through turns 1 and 2. Does the same in 3 and 4, where it's an even trickier set of turns. It's about 4 degrees flatter than it is in turn 1 and 2. As you watch him there just dive to that inside, still kind of hovering above that line, but just being real gentle with it. Don't think he could do as much because Dean Brummett a little bit tighter to the outside than Latham was that last time. The only problem he's going to have there is what Latham and Brummett both did was they kind of pinched him down a little bit on that exit, kind of scrubbing some more of that momentum away from the one, and that's why we're seeing him fall back a little bit. That and also being aggressive passing so many cars, the tire wear might be starting to become a factor.
Going back a little bit further in the pack, Michael Politis, who is in last place in our standings coming into this week, has moved up 7 spots from where he qualified. So he's up in the 13th position. He could certainly use a top 10, if not a top 5 here tonight, but looks like he is on the move.
He's doing a good job about managing his race tonight. Avoided that wreck, did the smart thing by just almost stopping on the track to make sure he didn't get caught up in that. He was in the back of the pack, just made sure he stayed away from that accident early. And here it just looks like he's being real conservative with the tires. And another thing to keep in mind that we haven't really talked about tonight is you're looking at 40 to 45 laps on fuel to get around this track. It's a 130 lap race. So if you can stretch it to 42, 43 laps, you're starting to think about, I might have a shot to make this in 2 stops. If you're being conservative with the tires early, it also means you're probably going to be conservative on the tires, or excuse me, on the fuel, and that's going to bode well to possibly extending this long enough that you might have 1 fewer stop than everybody else if this thing stays green the rest of the way.
Here's your race for second place between Dalton Tucker and Seth Berger, with Scott Healy just looking and trying to wait to figure out who he's going to get it behind.
That is a tough decision here because these guys have been side by side pretty often for second. They've gotten nose to tail here and there, but they always find themselves back side by side in this race for second, which James Holtzer in first is probably loving to see. Scott Healy, on the other hand, hates seeing this because it's kind of just stalled his momentum on his move towards the front. Because side by side, I mean, you just can't really make that work 3 wide to be the aggressor coming from behind there as Seth Berger gets a great run out of turn 4. He'll take the second spot, and that's going to pull Scott Healy with him. He's nearly going to get clear going into 1.
Yeah, that outside really gained that momentum, just like you were talking about, as we get deeper and deeper into this fuel run and this tire run, where that outside will start to pick up the pace just a little bit as the inside can't grip nearly as much.
Yeah, and that's the bigger thing right there, and you said it well, is just you can't grip the inside as well. The outside, you're turning at a softer radius, but you're also not having to worry so much about pinning that thing down to the inside to make sure that you don't drift up and catch anybody to the outside if you're side by side. The outside, you know where you are. It's a lot less aggressive on the tires, and you can still maintain momentum by just knowing where that wall is, and that softer turning radius makes it a whole lot easier to retain momentum as the tires start wearing out.
Well, up front, James Holtzer is just out for a calm Sunday drive as he is 1 second ahead of everybody on the track, as everybody else just fights off each other to try to move up positions.
And what a difference a season makes here, because last season at Kentucky, James Holtzer started in a 19th position, finished 4th, did not lead a lap, which sounds crazy if you think about what he's done this season, where he's led in almost every single race this season. But yeah, he had no laps led last year, finishing 4th, worked his way through the field well, but it was not a performance like this where James Holtzer has just led this since, I would say the start, but since lap 1, as Seth Berger was the pole sitter. But Berger himself holding on to a great job here, still sitting in second, hasn't really fallen off all that much. His lap time's still somewhat similar, maybe a tenth of a second every couple laps slower than James Holtzer, but doing a good job in his own right, just hanging on to second, doing what he needs to do to set himself up for Auto Club next week, and being in a pretty comfortable spot points-wise.
Yeah, the dream season continues for James Holtzer as he continues to lead this race here. And he talked to me just last week, and he said that he is considering doing the Road to Pro Series. So with this type of talent out here where he is just leading everybody by a second and just pulling away even further, he may have the talent to be there.
Oh, very well could. I mean, there's a few guys in the league that I think would have a good shot at it, should they give that a chance. I know this past season it was on Thursday nights, which kind of left some of the Xfinity guys out in the cold, because it was kind of running at the same time that we run it. But, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at James Holtzer, wants to run that and put in that time. That's a big pressure series. Ran a few races while I was still in the trucks before that transition happened and before I started doing more of this up in the booth. But those are races that you feel pressure. And for somebody like James Holtzer that, is running championship races here in this league and had the pressure put on him in some of these races, won a lot of league races, that pressure might not bother him a whole lot.
He is catching up to Landon Lacey, his teammate, just in front, who still has damage from that earlier incident, but is still on the lead lap for the time being. It looks like he'll have the lucky dog position for quite some time there if he does get past, so I don't really see him holding up his teammate here.
No, and he's also a little bit under power, I do believe, because he does have some of that front end damage as well as the rear damage to that car. So the handling's going to be off. It's not going to be full power. Just because of the level of impact that he had, as you see him just holding the outside line now through the tri-oval. He's just going to let James Holtzer go right on by, so no hold up there. He's got about a 12-second interval in front of him to Byron McDonald, so as long as James Holtzer doesn't make up those 12 seconds to Byron, yeah, you're right, that's going to be a long time for that lucky dog for Landon Lacey to hold, as you got to go back another 13 laps to Max Service, who's running 14 laps down right now. So Landon Lacey just trying to salvage as many points as he can, and he's in that position now where he's almost kind of hoping that other people have some issues tonight.
Well, the good news is that they're already through to the next round in the playoff, or the team playoffs, and so his points really don't matter that much. However, if they were competing against someone else, keep this in mind. Gabriel Ellison had internet issues. He was not able to make the start. Nick Goen was not able to make it here tonight either. So Landon Lacey's points would actually count in this regard. So yeah, him staying out there, that's just what a good teammate would do, regardless of how damaged you are.
And he's got to do it anyway. He comes into this race third in points, but he's 24 points clear of being out, and that's not going to happen tonight, just with the way the point structure is, the size of the field that we have tonight. But he could find himself in some dangerous positions going into Auto Club, where another bad race next week might see one of the title favorites left out of the picture after the opening round. Now, obviously, that's a track that I would assume he's going to do very well in. Did well at Michigan, and just the way that style of racing is, he's done well with it all season, but he's also done well at mile and a half, and he got caught up here. So that's a tough position to be in for Landon Lacey. I like that he's staying out there, giving it all that he has. If anybody else has an issue, 1 point could be picked up, and that could be the difference to him advancing to the next round.
Looked like we had some 3 wide there for a moment as Landon Lacey was on the outside. Jordan Sailors and the 17 of Reese Schaefer get by safely on that. But just kind of glancing at that matchup as we were in kind of a sketchy situation there as we're getting closer and closer to pit stops.
Yeah, probably about a handful of laps away from when people are going to need to make that pit stop. So I think here they're going to stretch it as far as they can for sure. We did have those 4 caution laps. That's going to add a couple of laps to this. So I think they might be able to stretch this out to about lap 45 or 46. The one that's going to have the hardest time stretching it out there, though, is going to be James Holtzer, just because there's been no draft assistance for him this entire time being out in front. So he's going to be the real indicator of how far he can stretch this out, and everybody else might be able to add a lap or 2 to what he's able to do.
Yeah, just think, if he pits at the same time as those guys out there, his lead is just going to continue to expand, but it would be smart for him to stay out as long as he possibly can. But let's just see who the first ones will be, as, like you said before, 43 laps is kind of the cutoff here as far as if you want to make it all the way on 2 stops. You've got to make it to at least lap 43 in order to do that. So we're still about 3 or 4 laps away.
And honestly, the way that the fuel window works and the amount of laps in this race, it's kind of actually working in the benefit of James Holtzer right now, because there's nobody that's going to dive in right now and sacrifice knowing that they're going to have to make an additional pit stop in this race. The way that lap works out with the fuel windows, it's really protecting him from too significant of an undercut that's really going to cost him a lot of time and track position by having somebody on fresher tires right now.
Yeah, just going back a little bit further. So Seth Berger, Dalton Tucker, looks like their battle is not over, even though Scott Healy has moved into second. So it doesn't look like Seth Berger and Dalton Tucker are done fighting yet.
No, they are not done, but you can see that gap that Scott Healy has put on Seth Berger, already about 0.6 of a second, and a lot of that goes to how much side-by-side racing we've seen from Seth Berger, how hard he had to fight to hold on to the second position for so long. Scott Healy was just kind of biding his time, picking off spots as they came, and really wasn't forcing the issue too much. So he's still got a lot of good speed in that car, and running a little bit quicker than James Holtzer is at this point. That last lap, I believe they were about level. This time in 1 and 2, a little bit quicker for James Holtzer. So he's running about equal lap times with the race leader now, 42 laps into the run. That should tell you that the 64 could be a contender here in this race for sure.
Oh, yeah. He came in with a lot of confidence into this race. And like you said, Holtzer's just a little bit faster than him last lap. But the few laps before that, Healy has been catching him ever so slightly. And we'll see what it looks like this time. It looks like Holtzer puts out another 0.04 of a second on him on this lap.
And that is such a minute difference there. And keep in mind now, 43 laps in, so we were talking about that 43, 43, 43 type of thing, where that's really that cutoff point on if you could make it on 2 stops. Everybody's now getting to that point. So I would say that the window is open. If anybody wants to come in now, they should be good the rest of the way if they can conserve that little bit. Reese Schaefer making a pit stop. He's coming in from, I want to say it was around the 12th position.
Yeah, he had absolutely nothing to lose with coming in at that time. So it looks like he will leave pit road and get his service completed. I don't see anybody else taking that shot right now.
No, and honestly, that's probably the right play. You do want to stretch this out to about 45 or 46, which is possible with that caution that we had earlier. That way you know that you can make it the rest of the way on one more stop if it stays green. You're not having to conserve as much. I would rather much rather conserve on the front end than on the back end of this race. So if you're able to avoid that, you go ahead and try to put in as many laps as you can right now. Sounds like we're going to start seeing some more pit activity here this time by, though.
Yeah, Kyle Benson makes the pass here on Austin Reedy, and that is for 6th position. So still fighting for every single spot that he can possibly get, especially as we're getting closer to these pit stops. And here we go. Michael Politis coming in, David Duke coming in, Jordan Saylor, Scott Kalal, all of them coming in all together.
And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with the draft. They're able to save a little bit more fuel, but these guys were sitting around that 8th position and back. They're doing this trying to come in a little bit earlier and pick up track position and gain a little bit of time towards the race leader. James Holtzer, seeing everybody making their pit stops, he's going to cut off any attempt of a small undercut right out of the gate. Scott Healy going to follow. Dalton Tucker follows, as does Timothy Latham and a handful of others. But that's going to give Seth Berger the lead here for the first lead change of the night in terms of laps led, and he's going to pick up the bonus point.
Yeah, very much needed bonus point to keep him up inside that top 10. Kyle Benson right behind him, kind of hoping that Seth Berger pits so that he can pick up a point as well. But let's see how it looks as they are coming off of pit road here very shortly. I think everybody's going to take all 4 tires, get full fuel. But Kyle Benson now, he will get that bonus point as Seth Berger and Dean Brummett come in together as well.
Kyle Benson going to be the beneficiary of just pushing this a little bit farther. He's going to get the benefit up front with a bonus point. Also going to get the benefit in the back end of this by just having to conserve a little bit less from everybody else. The problem he's going to have is his lap times right now are about 2 seconds a lap slower than anybody that's on fresh tires. He's going to come in this time by and try to minimize that damage, but he should be definitely good the rest of the way to make it on one stop should we not have another caution.
Joshua Balliet, he is finally going to come in. Emerson Ardon and Byron McDonald have not made their pit stops yet either. And so it looks like they will probably stay out a little bit longer. They did make a pit stop back on lap 6 when there was an incident that they were both involved in. And so they are able to make it just a little bit further as Emerson Ardon does take that lead. Doesn't quite have the bonus point yet, though. But it doesn't matter for him. He's outside the playoff cut anyway. Sorry, Emerson.
Yeah, Kyle Benson had enough of an edge that he did cross the line on pit road before Emerson Ardon. So if he stays out here this next lap, which he probably should be able to, having those 6 extra laps of fuel in the tank, he'll pick up the bonus point just for, going forward and gaining position in the leaderboard for those that did not make it through, as James Holtzer back on pit road a second time.
Yeah, he had to come back onto pit road. Not sure what happened there, but Scott Healy will be the presumptive leader once Reese Schaefer and Emerson Ardon do their pit stops here shortly.
See if we can find out what happened there to James Holtzer. But we got a big wreck on the front straightaway. Raul Meza, David Duke, a couple of others with heavy damage. Raul Meza spent time upside down in this wreck, and that is huge. That the caution comes out right now with Emerson Ardon still staying out on the track.
Well, let's go to a wreck replay and find out what happened. This started before the yellow flag came out. It looked like some people went through the grass, and we'll figure that out here shortly. But Scott Kalal was one of those that had to get onto the grass, I believe. Oh, Raul Meza started it off, yeah.
He was already in the wall coming out of turn 4. Oh, wow, some airtime there for the 23 of Scott Kalal. Hopefully no damage picked up from that. That is possible in iRacing. They do simulate that pretty well. But, yeah, Raul Meza, looks like he just got loose, probably on fresh tires at this point. And just those cold tires don't want to grip too well. And you can see how much he got loose, going for a wild ride down the front stretch. More damage to Max Service. You saw him clip the 37. David Duke with some heavy damage as well. And that is a tough position for David Duke, who came into this 3 points clear, and he's got heavy damage to the front end of that car.
It looked like he turned right there to try to keep it on the wall so he would not hit these guys, but then hit the wall a little bit too hard and bounced back down is how I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, and you could tell he was doing everything he could to not be a factor for that playoff race, but he turns it right, and then that wall just kicks him right back down. Wow, netcode kind of launching him a little bit there. But yeah, that's a tough break for Raul Meza, and a tougher break for some of our playoff drivers like David Duke, Max Service, and Scott Kalal. 2 of those 3 been getting in their second incident of the night.
Somebody that absolutely loved that, even though you never like to see people wreck, I think would be James Holtzer. Even though he is a lap down right now, he is not going to be a lap down under green flag caution, or under green flag conditions. He'll just be lap down under yellow for now. So he will have the opportunity to hopefully next time be the lucky dog as he comes around this next time around. If there is another incident, he could earn that lucky dog back and get himself back on the lead lap.
Well, the way that the pit times worked with Emerson Ardon and Byron McDonald staying out, Byron McDonald, first car, a lap down right now. So that actually prevented the lucky dog from going to James Holtzer, who, yeah, assuming that was a penalty that he received. Still have not heard that for sure, but just the way that all worked out, I'm going to assume there was a penalty that he suffered. But Emerson Ardon came on the radio once that caution came out and was asking, like, hey, what happens if I don't make it around to pit road? Like, do I need to let anybody know so nobody gets a penalty? He was at the very end of that fuel cycle when that caution came out.
Yeah, we're still trying to find out what happened with Holtzer that he had to come back in. And so we'll let you know as soon as we know something. But he came back in once again, probably just to get fresh tires and top off and everything, to do as much as he possibly can to get closer to the front of the pack.
That's exactly the move I would do too. If you know you're a lap down, you're not going to really lose a whole lot of position. There's only 2 cars behind him a lap down. So I would make that stop. And then you're thinking also, I've got an extra 6-7 laps to play with when everybody else has to make their pit stops. Maybe a caution comes out with that transition with fresh tires and old tires on the track. All that happens. The odds of a caution coming out just it get higher and higher around green flag pit stops with the nature of the racing at that time. So that's an extra boost for James Holtzer there, that maybe that caution comes out at that time and he gets back on the lead lap just by being able to stay out that little bit longer.
Well, another boost for him, Byron McDonald, who was in front of him, is now behind him as he is still on pit road getting damage fixed. So is Jordan Sailors. And so currently right now, if there was another caution, then James Holtzer would be your lucky dog.
And he's not going to have a whole lot of competition if we see all those one lap down drivers going 2 laps down, as Dean Brummett making his way to pit road, giving up the 13th position. Yeah. He was the last car on the lead lap. So not a whole lot of trouble here. Just come in, top off on some fuel. I don't necessarily know if he would take tires at this point. Not a whole lot on there, but it's an option if he wants to, as we're 1 lap away from going back green.
Well, and I believe he had a little bit of damage also, because he was the last time he was in the pits, he was in his pit box for about 38 seconds. But this time around, I think he was just topping off for fuel. Looks like his car is relatively clean.
Yeah, that 25 car looks pretty good. I don't see any damage, at least anything noticeable from afar. So whatever damage he had repaired was definitely taken care of, and should be in a good position there. Also picking up that little extra buffer in terms of how far he can stretch it on this this next green flag run. Should this go a while, that could help him out greatly.
Well, the champ is at the front of the pack. Scott Healy is going to lead us to the green flag with Dalton Tucker on his outside, Seth Berger in 3rd, Timothy Latham in 4th.
Going to be real interesting. We're seeing somebody out in front for the first time on a restart that's not James Holtzer. And we've seen how good of a jump that he got on that last restart. See if Scott Healy can do the same and really pull away before taking this green flag.
And there he goes. And yeah, he does get a really good jump on Dalton Tucker on the outside there. So Scott Healy takes off, and he will do everything he can to gain this lead as much as he possibly can, just like his predecessor, James Holtzer, did.
A big run following through from 3rd place for Seth Berger. He's going to move into 2nd. Timothy Latham is going to make the jump from 4th up to 3rd, and now looking to take the 2nd position away. He has been fantastic on restarts, even from the 2nd or 3rd row on the start, the restart, and the first caution. And this current restart, he just gets some great runs through 1 and 2.
So Timothy Latham will settle into 3rd for the time being. Dalton Tucker trying to make up the ground that he lost there on the restart. Getting out to the outside, trying to use the draft from Seth Berger to get around Timothy Latham. Can't do it that time around, but Austin Reedy up in 5th place here as well.
And we saw how many positions he picked up early on in that last run, where he did get aggressive having to do that and lost a little bit of time because of the tire wear that he had to spend doing that. Now he's sitting in that 5th position on this restart, doing a great job tonight, and now he's in a good position where he's on level ground with everybody once again, and seeing that there's not many cars in front of him this time. Austin Reedy might be somebody to keep your eye on here as this race plays out, as we get near halfway.
Yeah, Austin Reedy, the driver that I would choose if you asked me who's not in the playoffs and you thought he would be, Austin Reedy is the answer to that question for me.
Without question. That still surprises me a bit that he came up that little bit short. That was a heartbreaker for him in that last regular season race. And then a handful of guys just got caught up in issues last week in Las Vegas in that race. And Max Service wound up being the guy that was getting that lucky dog, and not undeserving for Max Service. I don't want it to be taken that way. He's had some great momentum lately. But it was definitely a surprise that Austin Reedy fell short of making the playoffs here this season.
Well, up front, our defending champion, Scott Healy, leading the way here. Not really able to put the separation on Seth Berger like he'd want to just yet, and maybe that'll happen a little bit later on in this fuel run, but only about 0.2 of a second lead between him and Seth Berger.
And what a difference 40 laps, 50 laps makes, because look at the last time we had a restart. We were seeing side by side all the way through from like 3rd on back to about 12th, 13th, 14th. This time they're getting pretty well single file. We got Kyle Benson and Austin Reedy side by side, but aside from that, everybody really giving each other space right now.
Yeah, Kyle Benson and Austin Reedy are teammates, so I don't really see anything happening between those two besides just good, hard, clean racing Right behind them, Reese Schaefer for Tank Racing, and it looked like somebody scraped the wall a little bit. It might have been Reedy.
Very well could have been, and I recall on Wednesday seeing a lot of trucks wind up just scraping along that wall at the entry to turn 3. Saw a handful of guys do that in the Xfinity race through my windshield as well. So something about that entry into turn 3, people really like doing that deep turn from right up against the wall, and sometimes you just kind of give it a little too much towards that wall and it just kind of gives you that little scrape.
Side by side here for the 3rd position. Timothy Latham on the outside, Dalton Tucker on the inside. That outside has been working really well for Timothy Latham. He's getting some big runs out there.
He's got that outside line figured out. We're still a little early into the run for me to think that the outside is going to be the really strong way around here side by side, but Latham has been making it work, and Reese Schaefer is going to see if he picked up any information there and try to do it himself. We're going to go 3 wide possibly. Schaefer did pull out in front right before Benson got to the inside of Dalton Tucker, and Raul Meza doing a good job there, realizing what was going on behind him and bailing out to the apron and making sure he stayed out of the way of that near 3 wide moment.
Going back up front, Scott Healy starting to pull away just a little bit, 0.3 of a second now. It was 0.2 just a couple laps ago. So he is starting to get it done out there, but really strange what happened with James Holtzer. We still don't have confirmation on what exactly happened with him, where he had to come back down a second time. We think it may have been a penalty of some sort. We just don't know what just yet. But as it sits, he is 1 lap down. And if his car is clean, then he has the speed to get back up front.
He has the speed. He just needs a lot of help at this point, and most notably a caution to come out. He is in the lucky dog position, but that's only so good for so much. You got to have that caution happen, and you never want to hope that there's one. But I think if you're James Holtzer, you're kind of sitting there going, all right, as long as it's not my teammates, hopefully something else happens out there.
Speaking of his teammates, back here in 3rd, Timothy Latham gets that 3rd position away from Reese Schaefer and Kyle Benson. So how he is up in that 3rd position. Can he make it 3 in a row?
I would not put it past him. He's still sitting in a really strong position here, still within a half second of Scott Healy. Healy has been, I would say, the 2nd strongest tonight, with James Holtzer being the one that obviously has had the most speed. Healy has not been too far off there, though. But Timothy Latham, I think, hasn't been far off of that level too much. I think he's in there with Seth Berger in terms of that 3rd and 4th best cars that we've seen tonight. But Reese Schaefer, good run to the inside, and he's on a tear right now, moving all the way up to the 3rd position.
Keep in mind that Reese Schaefer, he started off in 2nd, so we know that he's got the speed out there. He just hasn't had the opportunity to get back up to that front position. His teammate Seth Berger, just in front of him, started off in 1st, started off with the pole position, and it looks like he is starting to find that speed once again.
Yeah, those tank guys on the march right now, sitting in 2nd and 3rd, splitting the two with Scott Healy and Timothy Latham. Kyle Benson now up to the 5th position as well. So we're seeing a couple of guys that fell off early on in this race, maybe towards like that 8th to 10th position, starting to reemerge here early on in this 2nd run since that pit stop.
Well, the defending champion, Scott Healy, still leads this thing, and now he is starting to approach that level of, can he get that extra bonus point for leading the most laps?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close. We still got plenty of time, still got about 63 laps to go, so obviously he's more than able to do so. We're about 50-50 or so, getting close to that. I think it was about 40 laps led for James Holtzer, 43 actually, I want to say. So it'd be about 25 or so for Scott Healy right now. He's getting pretty close to that and looking like he's in a decent position. But now you got those 2 tank teammates getting closer and closer to that back bumper of that Camry.
Yeah, and even when you're a faster car, when you have 2 teammates right behind you working together, it is tough to fend them off. Even if you have that little bit of extra speed there, those 2 teammates, they can work together, they can be in the draft, they can push each other in the right direction. One of them can fake you out and go one way. I mean, it could be all sorts of different things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they can do, a lot of communication that can go in their favor. And also, they can just straight up link up with each other and try to give that little bit of a draft help on the straightaways. It's not too much here at Kentucky because there is a pretty good amount of time off the throttle, so you do lose a lot of momentum. But that draft is always a little bit of a factor, even if it's just a 1% boost in speed down the straightaways.
Well, as they are racing up front, everybody else has really gotten lined up behind them. Not a lot of side-by-side racing. This is the closest battle right here between Dalton Tucker and Kyle Benson for 5th place.
Oh, close moment there coming off the apron for Dalton Tucker. You saw him get a couple of inches away from that left rear quarter panel of that 10 car, but it's going to work out here. It's no harm, no foul, and Dalton Tucker got a good run to the inside and looks like he's in good position to possibly get clear before exiting turn 4, and almost does it. That outside line still going to have that little bit of a shot, though, for Kyle Benson to try to gain that position back.
And now James Holtzer puts his nose in there, and they are 3 wide as Holtzer tries to continue to move his way up front. Oh no, these two are going to get together. Oh, Benson kept it off the wall. How did he do that?
What a save for Kyle Benson, but he's still not out of it. As I saw, oh wow, close racing there with Michael Politis as well. And that is a tough moment, going 3 wide there in 1 and 2, and never too happy when it involves a lapped car, even if it is a guy that's been the fastest out there the entire night. You just don't know how you feel about going 3 wide with somebody a lap down.
Well, James Holtzer now just behind his teammate Timothy Latham. So Timothy is actually in 4th position. Holtzer is not in 5th. He is a lap down, but he is definitely working on making his way all the way up front so he can get his lap back naturally.
And that's a huge thing right there. If you can get it back naturally and then the caution comes out, you don't have to worry about the way that your pits are going to work, the way that everything's going to happen, automatically starting in the back of the pack because you're the lucky dog. All those things are washed away when you naturally get that lap back, caution comes out, all of a sudden you're in the mix with everybody else. You're not kind of on your own island.
I mean, that is a really, really rare thing to see a lap down car make his way through the pack like this, but you know, this is the regular season points champion right now, and he is definitely trying to do anything he can to get back into this race.
Yeah, and what I was saying earlier, too, about 3 wide with a lapped car, that's just how you feel after the fact. I don't blame James Holtzer for being aggressive, making his way back up through the field. He sees the opportunity to get that lap back on his own. He's got to take those chances. It was aggressive, but I'm not going to say it was a wrong move. It was just an aggressive move.
Well, just going back through the standings, it looks like all of Rd Motorsports has left the race, and so Jordan Sailors, David Duke were the only 2 for Rd Motorsports. Both of them, it looks like, have dropped out of the race, and so the team that they're playing against, Rev Racing, they are going to have a huge points night, and they are going to really put R&D behind the 8 ball going into next week.
That is a tough position for R&D, and you look at, Scott Kalal sitting in the 10th position, Dalton Tucker sitting in the 5th position, so those are strong point plays for 2 of those Rev Racing drivers sitting inside the top 10, while R&D is going to be taking, I won't say no points because it is a smaller field, but it's going to be minimal points. Now, that's going to be a huge gap for R&D to overcome next week.
Well, while we were talking, so Timothy Latham was passed by his teammate James Holtzer. Again, not for position, but Holtzer up to technically 4th place on the track there. So one of those deals where now he's considering taking this thing 3 wide on the 2 tank teammates.
Oh my, so there he's going to get inside for Seth Berger. Not going to be a 3 wide condition there as he's going to make that pass. But man, the speed in that 42 right now. He's reminding people, you know what? I get back on the lead lap. You got to keep that 42 right in the front of your mind.
So it looks like he is going to try the inside of Reese Schaefer on this next lap. And that would put him right behind our leader, Scott Healy.
And now the question's going to be, as he gets, should be clear coming out of turn 2, of Reese Schaefer, and he is. So now the question is going to be, all right, if you're Scott Healy, how much do you fight this? Should James Holtzer get to your back bumper, do you work as hard as you can to keep him a lap down, or do you just let him by and focus on those that are still on the lead lap right now and just kind of risk it? That there's not a caution the rest of the way, that this stays with some longer runs, and Holtzer kind of doesn't really have that chance to make up that time. But it's a huge decision right now for Scott Healy on how he wants to handle this should Holtzer catch up.
I think it's got to come down to, can he pass him cleanly? And if so, then let him pass you cleanly. Because nothing will be more frustrating than to lose your lead to somebody because, they wrecked you. So definitely, if he gets right up to his bumper and he's faster than you, yeah, let him by. He's not affecting anything. The worst thing that Scott Healy can do right now, or anybody on the track, is bring out a caution. You bring out a caution right now, that allows James Holtzer back on that lead lap, allows him to get right back into the thick of things, which we've already seen. He started from the back on this stint, and now he's all the way up to second. So nothing's going to deny him from making his way through the pack unless we go green the rest of the way.
Yeah, and that's the debate right there, and I think you're on the right track. Where if he's got a big run, all right, cool, live to fight another day. We'll handle that if it comes up again. If a caution comes out and Holtzer winds up racing for the win here, but it's one of those things, like, you just don't know how much energy Healy's putting into this to try to hang on to that gap ahead of Holtzer, or if he's just still running his own race. That I want to assume that he is right now just running his own race. It's not like he was much slower. I mean, we're talking hundredths of a second at most in terms of lap differentials between him and Holtzer when they were both on the lead lap racing for the lead earlier. So it's not like he's not worthy of leading this race or not much slower at all than James Holtzer is. So it's kind of a hard thing right now of what's actually happening. I think he's still just running his own race, and if he gets to that bumper, he's just going to let him go.
Well, also, Scott Healy needs to be thanking James Holtzer right now, because that has helped him to open up a 0.6 of a second lead over second-place Reese Schaefer, because nobody can get around Holtzer. And so now, back behind that, Reese Schaefer and Seth Berger now fighting for that second position once again. So as much stuff is going on behind James Holtzer, that just puts that much more of a gap between Scott Healy and those guys.
Yeah, a bit of a rough exit out of turn 4 for Reese Schaefer that last time by, and really lost some momentum, and that let Seth Berger get to the inside, and by doing that, that also opened that door for Dalton Tucker to go to the inside, possibly Timothy Latham to do so as well. We got a caution on the track.
Ooh, let's find out who that is. Is that Raul Meza? Yeah, it looks like he dove into the pits extremely. Actually, yeah, he dove into the pits immediately. I think he may have wrecked on the track and brought out that caution. Let's take a look at our next wreck replay, brought to you by BeerStreetJournal.com. And it looks like, yeah, he just basically stopped on the track, and that's what brought out the caution.
Yeah, it sounds like he blew the engine on that car, which as much damage is on the front end of that 37 car, that is not a surprise. And yeah, he definitely, that thing blew up. You can see it, the RPM's going, everything just kind of glitching right there. That engine went. So that's all that happened there. He stopped on the apron. Normally that doesn't bring out a caution, but this time I guess it was close enough to the track that the sensors, or however you want to put it for iRacing, detected it, threw out the caution. And that's going to still trap James Holtzer that lap down. He will get the lucky dog, but that's the difference we were talking about. He didn't get it back naturally getting on the lead lap, so he's kind of on his own little island until this restart.
And here we go with 45 laps to go. Can you make it the rest of the way? This has really turned into an interesting call here because of Raul Meza and that caution. So we will see if anybody can make it the entire way as the entire group comes into the pits, except for Joshua Balliet, which that might just be a strategy deal where he just wants to come in a little bit later.
That is very possible that he will do that. I'm not too sure because, I mean, at this point he did come in a little bit later than everybody else. So he was in at lap 49 on his last pit stop, but he's still, if he stays out right now, by the time we go green, he'll have to come in the next 10 laps or so. So this definitely would probably be something to pick up a point or anything like that, just to lead a lap. But yeah, looking back at pit road, it should be. Actually, I think it was Dalton Tucker that got out of pit road first. No, I take that back. Sorry, I really
Berger.
looked at that wrong.
It looks like
Seth Berger out of pit road first.
Yep, so Seth Berger will be the first car that has pitted. Joshua Balliet, it looks like he's diving down, and he's going to go into pit road along with Landon Lacey, Max Service, and a few others. So that will give the lead back, or not back, but it'll give the lead to Seth Berger, who started off on the pole of this race.
Yeah, so he's going to pick up that bonus point right here. Actually, he did have one already with the way that the first pit cycle went through, so I take that part back. But he will lead another lap here as he's actually leading the pace car a little bit, so an interesting moment there. And we were talking about, can you make it the rest of the way? I think with the caution, it should be somewhat easy. It is something you'll have to keep in mind a little bit. You can't be too aggressive on the fuel mileage. The crazy thing about all this is we talk about when you get the lucky dog, you're kind of on your own island. One thing that also does is you have to pit one lap later than the lead lap cars, and that might be all the difference for James Holtzer to be one step closer of having a little bit less to worry about on fuel the rest of the way should this stay green.
And Holtzer will come out in 13th position, but back on the lead lap now. And so you saw how quickly he went through the field on that last stint when he was a lap down. Going to make things very, very interesting this time around, as Seth Berger will lead us to green along with Scott Healy on his outside, I believe.
Now, one thing we can also say is when you're a lap down, people are going to race you a lot less intensely when you're starting to go by them. If you're a little bit quicker, they're just going to say, all right, you're quicker, we'll let you go. Maybe unless you're the leader, but from second on back, they're not going to fight you as much. So probably going to be a whole lot more resistance this time against James Holtzer, but that is a fast 42 car that I think Seth Berger in that race lead and Scott Healy, who's going to be starting this restart in second, that's something that they're going to have to keep in the back of their mind, that James Holtzer back on the lead lap, and he's going to be on a charge.
Well, this just made this race even more interesting. So many storylines coming into this thing. There's going to be even more storylines coming out of it as well. But Seth Berger is out there looking for a big finish here tonight, and that will help him stay in that playoff top 10. But Reese Schaefer right behind him outside the cut right now. A big finish here could help him sneak his way into that playoff top 10.
And yeah, you want to keep in mind, like, look at that the left side of the screen, and we talked about it earlier. If your number's in green, that means that you're inside the top 10 entering this race. There's only 4 of those green numbers inside the top 10 here in this race right now, 3 of them in the top 4, and then there's a whole bunch of drivers that are out of the playoffs in there as well, with Reedy, Lautenschlager, and Ardon. So this is a huge opportunity for guys like Reese Schaefer and Kyle Benson, who's sitting in 7th, and Joshua Balliet in 9th. Huge opportunity for them to make a big jump up into the top 10.
Yeah, this is one of those races with only 22 cars on the track where you can't make up a ton of ground because of the way our point system works, but you can make up some. So you just got to take every opportunity you can possibly get. And that is exactly what Seth Berger, Reese Schaefer are doing as they get this thing restarted. Scott Healy on the outside, but Seth Berger gets a great jump.
Huge jump, and he knew that he was in communication with his teammate there, Reese Schaefer, who was starting right behind him. And that inside line has been hard to beat on restarts already, and even harder when you can communicate with the person behind you in your Discord channel. And that's going to bode well for them as they're off to a 1-2 start out of turn 2 and into turn 3.
And we're going to have to look back, but right now, without a Next Level Motorsports driver in the top 3, this might be the first race all season that somebody from Next Level Motorsports has not been in the top 3.
Horrible night for them as they're only sitting in 4th in this field. That just shows how good of a season it has been when we're sitting there surprised that they don't have a driver inside the top 3 at one point in the race. But Timothy Latham sitting there in the 4th position. James Holtzer, by the way, already up to 7th. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he has definitely just run through the back part of this pack. And so now only a few spots back from the leader, only a second behind the leader, and that could be made up very easily by him, just the speed that he's had. But up front, Seth Berger still leads the way with his teammate Reese Schaefer right behind. Scott Healy still in third place.
And my big question right now is going to be, how long is this top six going to stay strung out single file? You know it's going to end at some point in the next 40 laps if it stays green, because they're going to want to start getting antsy and start making passes. But right now, this is the worst thing for James Holtzer in 7th, seeing these guys in single file, because that just limits the opportunities that you can reel in somebody and make that pass. Because everybody's going to be going at max speed around this track by not having to go single or side by side and lose some of that momentum.
Right now, it looks like Healy's just kind of content to stay where he's at, which is the epitome of what you're saying. Just race your race, and that's kind of what he's doing right now. He doesn't want to burn up those tires too quickly. I think he'd rather have that top end speed at the end of the race, so he is not pushing Reese Schaefer too terribly hard here.
And this is big picture racing right now for the guys in the top 4. If you're Seth Berger, you enter this race 6th in points. You're also looking for your first win, so this would be a great moment for him if he can hang on to this. If you're Scott Healy, you're 4th in points. Timothy Latham, 2nd in points. You're sitting there thinking, you know what? Nobody else inside the top 10 is really having that good of a day in terms of the top 10 in the point standings. So this is a great position. I don't have to risk a whole lot. Even if you're Reese Schaefer, you came in first one out, but you're sitting 2nd in the race right now, and this is a tremendous points day for you. So there's not a whole lot of reason to be too aggressive. As I say that, Scott Healy makes the dive into the inside on turn 3 to try to take 2nd position away from Reese Schaefer.
Yeah, we're just not very good at what we do, because every time we say, oh yeah, he's just going to sit back, they start really racing hard. And so Scott Healy will take that 2nd position away as he tries to get back up to the front to take his lead back once again.
And by the way, there's somebody else making his way back through the field that I think we've kind of slept on a little bit, but it's right behind James Holtzer, and that's at 73 of Dalton Tucker, who's also been very fast today. He's kind of made his way back up after a slower stop. Not sure if there was damage he had to repair or if there was a problem on pit road, but he fell back a couple of spots. There he goes, taking the 7th position away from Holtzer. Dalton Tucker might be somebody that a bit of a dark horse here in the last 35 laps of this race.
Up front, Seth Berger still under pressure from Scott Healy. Reese Schaefer has fallen back to 4th behind Timothy Latham.
Real easy to do here. When you kind of get that side-by-side and you're shuffled out of a comfortable line, it does kind of throw you off for maybe the next couple of turns, if not the entire lap afterwards, trying to get back into the position and into the rhythm that you need to have around this track. Each side is so different in how you have to attack the turns that if you get kind of shuffled out that little bit, it does mess with you for a bit. So not too surprising to see somebody get kind of pushed out of that line and then fall back just that little bit more.
Scott Healy, he is definitely stalking his prey here as he goes down to the inside just a little bit. It looks like Seth Berger came down just a hair to block him a touch. And now Scott Healy will get side by side with him, at least get a fender. And so as they come off the corner, they will be side by side for the lead.
A great run on the inside for Scott Healy, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Within the first 10 laps or so under green flag laps, that inside line does have a pretty good grip level that you can get a lot of momentum going forward. Once they get about 20 laps in or so, that outside line becomes the better position side by side because of the momentum that you can take coming out of the turn, but we're still in that spot where the inside is still going to have a slight advantage.
Yeah, he's going to need a little bit of help from his teammate Austin Reedy on the inside to give him just a little bit of a push to get him all the way up to the lead, because he is not clear of Seth Berger yet.
And how about this? Everybody just all within a half second within the top 8 right now. Unbelievably close racing with 30 laps to go.
Yeah, and James Holtzer has closed it to 0.4 of a second between him and the lead. It was 1 second just a few laps ago, but Scott Healy finally clears Seth Berger and takes the lead back once again.
And Now let's see if they stay side by side through this group or if they start to stretch out just a little bit again, trying to conserve a little bit of tires, expecting this to go green the rest of the way. That's something you got to keep in the back of your mind as Austin Reedy moves into the third position ahead of Timothy Latham.
It looks like Austin Reedy is going to go to the inside. He is going to try to bring in second place here as he passes Seth Berger on the inside.
Yeah, there's a lot of motivation behind the wheel of that one car right now. We talked about how it was really the most surprising person that did not make the playoff this season was Austin Reedy. A big drive from him right now, trying to remind people that he still is somebody to be threat to win races out here despite falling just short of the playoffs. That is a very motivated driver in that one car.
Well, we already know that the point standings in the playoffs are going to change because Gabriel Ellison didn't make the race, because Nick Gowen didn't make the race. We already know that a couple of those spots are going to move around. The question is, who's going to move up into that position? Right now, Dalton Tucker, the number 73 car, like you were saying, has moved all the way back up into fourth position. He wants those points.
Oh, real close moment there between him and Timothy Latham as Latham was coming back up off the apron. Tucker kind of held it a little bit lower than I think Latham was expecting, and they nearly touched. They might have just touched a little bit. That was a close call there going into turn one, but still side by side, good run for both. And Tucker going to be clear going in, but that inside line gets a good drive into the turn. It's going to give Latham a shot, but that outside momentum going to be huge for Tucker. Holtzer going to make it 3 wide. Latham going to back out and live to fight another day for this battle for position.
Yeah, but that puts Holtzer up into the top 5. Now he's moved up past Dalton Tucker into 4th.
This is what we were saying earlier. Once there's a lot of side-by-side racing, there's a lot more opportunity to pick up positions. If they stayed single file, that was going to be where it would be tougher. But Holtzer, now that they got in side-by-side, he got into that pack, got that rhythm, and built that momentum up. Now we're starting to see him make his push towards the front even more.
And he almost got third away from Austin Reedy there on that lap, but he does have that inside position. We'll see if he can make it stick on that inside. And it looks like he is going to pass Austin Reedy with ease as he moves back into the podium position.
And still 25 laps to go. Plenty of time here for somebody to make this move, jumping up, whether it be James Holtzer, whether it be Dalton Tucker, anybody here in this top 8. If it stays green the rest of the way, still very much has a shot based on how tire wear happens, based on if everybody has enough fuel to go the rest of the way. As intense as the racing has been, conserving fuel has not been a thing for anybody with the way that this momentum, the way that this racing has been since this restart. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
So our top 3 all separated by about half a second as Scott Healy kind of pulled away a little bit. But Seth Berger just 4/10 behind. James Holtzer just about a 10th behind that as the battle for second is starting to heat up.
And we're starting to see the class of the field start to separate themselves a little bit more here as we got side by side now. James Holtzer to the inside of Seth Berger, and he's got a good run on the inside. Might have enough to clear him before they get out of turn 2. Not quite. Nose still there on the right rear quarter panel. And there's that big outside momentum push for Seth Berger. Big drive inside into turn 3 for James Holtzer. Still going to be side by side though as they come off turn 4.
And so you were saying about 20 laps before those tires on the inside don't start to work as well, and we are at that 20 lap point. So it's going to be really interesting to see if James taking it to the inside so many times and driving as aggressively as he has to get up to the front is going to cause a lot of tire fall off here, because Seth Berger is staying right there with them.
And a lot of it, too, also has to do with how aggressive Seth Berger is holding the outside line. If he gives James Holtzer a good amount of space, Holtzer can still retain some of that momentum from the inside because he doesn't have to pinch it down so tightly and doesn't have to kind of tighten up that radius so much that he scrubs off extra speed. And you can see right there, that's a good job of holding that outside position by Seth Berger, really kind of pinning him down. He still gives him space, doesn't want to put any of them in trouble, but he pins him down a good bit that he can use most of the momentum coming out of the turn and really limit what the 42 can have driving out of the turn.
Yeah, but as soon as he pinned him down there, it looked like James Holtzer just got a little bit more speed somehow and moved right back up. So they are still side by side. Neither one of them can get clear.
This is great racing, and this is really great news for Scott Healy. He's loving seeing this in his mirror. You can see that lead just grow and grow. It's gone about 0.3 of a second here these last couple laps since they got side by side. Also loving this is going to be Dalton Tucker and Austin Reedy right behind this side by side race. They're just kind of chilling right now, saving their tires while these two are really abusing them as James Holtzer finally clear of Seth Berger to the outside, and Dalton Tucker going to try to follow him through on the inside door.
And now we got a side-by-side between Dalton Tucker and Seth Berger as James Holtzer finally makes his way clear and starts to move up, trying to put some pressure on Scott Healy at some point.
Now the question is going to be how much tires has James Holtzer used and how much has Scott Healy been able to conserve. I would imagine that while he was watching that side-by-side race, Scott Healy was thinking, I'm not going to give it as much because I don't have to do as much to pull away, just to try to save a little bit more life in those tires and try to hold him off once we get even deeper into this run. My question is going to be in the last 10 laps, should we stay green the rest of the way, how much tire life is Holtzer going to have compared to Healy?
And take a look at this. Holtzer has gained 0.05 of a second on that last lap. And let's see if he can gain even more here. I believe just based off of eyeing it that he has. As they come across that start-finish line, it looks like, oh yeah, he definitely gained another 1/10.5.
Now, yeah, but again, I want to know who's going to be faster in the last 10 laps. If a caution comes out, that's going to completely throw this all out the window. But I'm wondering how aggressive James Holtzer has been on those tires. He has been using them up, trying to close this gap, making all these passes, being side by side for multiple laps. Meanwhile, Scott Healy just running his race, staying in this line, staying in a good rhythm, just conserving those tires. You can hear the tires. If you do the audio levels the right way on this, you can hear when you're abusing those tires. It sounds a little bit different. It just intensifies in the audio levels. And if you're just on your own thing, most of the time, you barely hear those tires in the turns.
I mean, this is classic champion versus challenger, as the defending champion Scott Healy does everything he can to hold off the challenger of James Holtzer, who has basically led this series from start to finish all the way to this point. And so it's just a matter of, can the old guard hold back the new guy?
It's almost a reverse position of what we got used to last season, because for so long Scott Healy kind of had that underdog role, and here in this race he's really been the dominant force since we got about 40 laps in, leading almost the entire thing since that point. And now it's James Holtzer trying to come from behind here, making a huge comeback from being one lap down after that penalty that he had on that first pit stop, putting him all the way back in, I believe it was the 17th position at one point. Got the lap back from the lucky dog win that he got there when the caution came out last time by, and now trying to close that gap down. 15 laps to go. The gap is shrinking, but it is significantly slower than it was a few laps ago.
And now Scott Healy coming up on James Holtzer's teammate, Landon Lacey, to try to put him a lap down, another lap down. And we'll see how easy or difficult Landon Lacey makes this on Scott Healy. But it looks like he's just basically going to stay out of the way.
Oh yeah, he doesn't have enough power to even try to even consider blocking or anything like that. It looks like he's running at about 90-95% capacity to that engine with all the damage that he took in that opening caution. But in getting around him, though, the way that they caught Landon Lacey, just by that alone kind of made up a 1/10 of a second or so, because Healy caught him going into one, Holtzer caught him in the middle of 1 and 2, and that was just a whole lot easier because of the way that the positioning was for those two on the track.
And now that lead is down to 1/4 of a second as we are at 13 laps to go. Everyone else has kind of faded off into the distance. This is going to be a two-car race.
Man, alive. They are pulling away, almost a second clear of third place Seth Berger, who's almost a second clear of Austin Reedy behind him. So Seth Berger kind of sitting comfortably in that third position, but very uncomfortable position for the race leader Scott Healy right now, as he sees James Holtzer now within a quarter of a second of that back bumper on that Toyota Camry.
Can he hold him off? Can he defend that championship with just this one race? And really, both of these guys are very comfortable inside that top 10 in the playoff standings right now. So both of them will likely move on to the next round regardless. But this is a psyche thing. This is one of those deals where if Scott Healy can't hold him off here, then it might just get into his mind that he is going to struggle to defend that championship.
This is a big-time a confidence booster. There's a lot of ways you could put it that might not necessarily be G-rated for the broadcast also. But this is one of those big contests right now that you're sitting there going, do I have enough to hold off this guy? Once we get to Atlanta, am I going to have the mental advantage? Can I sit there and say, I held you off for 30 laps around Kentucky when maybe you were the faster car, but I had the better play on it? One thing I'm starting to notice, too, a couple of laps ago, James Holtzer went from being faster on entry to giving up time on entry. And I'm not sure if that was just a slip-up. I didn't have a good look at it at the time. Or if he was trying to find something to see if he can get a better run on exit and seeing what would work better. Maybe trying to set up something where he can figure out what he needs to do to make this pass happen. But he's kind of doing some research right now, seeing where he can make up that little bit of extra time that he needs to get to move into that number one spot.
Now down to within 0.2 of a second. It's just getting closer and closer, and you keep calling it the Jaws effect, where you start hearing the da-da, 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 but at the same time, Healy, that might get him going even faster.
Well, Scott Healy's going to need a faster boat. I'm not sure about a bigger boat, but yeah, he's definitely hearing that music. One other kind of tone of music that you might not want to count out is Seth Berger. Look at the gap and how that has closed off. It's gone from a second and a quarter back from first to third, all the way down to just 0.7 of a second now. So while these two are trying to figure out how they want to handle each other in that race for first, Seth Berger saying, all right, I'll pull right back in and make this a 3-car race.
Oh yeah, that would just make this even better. 3 different cars from 3 different teams, all within pretty good space inside that top 10 in the playoff standings, all just trying to work their way into that victory position.
So 7 laps to go. Scott Healy at this point, I do believe he's clinched the bonus point for most laps led at this point. That's just from table math. I think he's got that locked up. But he wants to pick up those 3 extra points along with that win that will just push him even farther towards that number one spot and keep him even safer going into the cutoff race next week in Auto Club as we come to the line for 6 laps to go, still holding 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, and it looked like Holtzer got a little bit out of shape at the beginning of that lap, but gained that time back really, really quickly. So still, nothing's decided here yet at all.
And I think it's a battle of halves on this track. And in turns 1 and 2, Healy's a little bit quicker than Holtzer, but once you get to right about there, once you get about midway down the back straightaway, going through 3 and 4, Holtzer's a little bit stronger. So it's a battle of 2 sides on the track. This time, great run from Scott Healy. He absolutely nailed that line, pulled away about 0.06 of a second in 3 and 4 alone.
Oh, it just gets better and better as the laps tick off. Scott Healy still leading this race. James Holtzer in second. Seth Berger starting to fall back once again. And he's basically got third place pretty well locked up at this point. But this is a battle between 2 cars.
And this is the moment of the race I was talking about when I said, where are your tires going to be at the end of this race? It's just that little bit more grip, that little bit more trust in the tires that Scott Healy can have right now because he's been out front for so long since that restart. He has not had to abuse those tires nearly as much as James Holtzer has, and I think that's going to be the difference right now.
4 laps to go. We are still not done yet, but it does look like James Holtzer has backed off just a little bit as we see a little bit of a blink from him there. But it looks like he fell off the pace just a hair, but still within 0.3 of a second.
So 3 laps to go. He's got 3 of our top 6 drivers in the point standing, sitting in the top 3 positions right now. But Scott Healy trying to make a big statement right now, holding off the dominant driver of the season. James Holtzer leads the league in wins here this season. And a little bit of lap traffic with Byron McDonald just in front. Should be out of the way enough here that I don't believe he's going to be a factor. He's going to hold it up high through the tri-oval and should not cause any problem here for the pace or the rhythm for either of these two.
Oh, and Scott Healy's basically going to use him as a little bit of a pick there for a brief second. And so Scott still with a quarter-second lead. Nothing's really changed in the last 10 laps or so. It's been about a quarter-second the entire way around. But 2 laps to go as we are coming rapidly to the white flag. Scott Healy, can he hold off James Holtzer?
It's going to take something huge from James Holtzer or a mistake from Scott Healy at this point. They have been basically level for the past 12 laps. Catching him is possible. I'm not too sure Holtzer's got enough right now to pass him, though.
We're going to find out as we come down the backstretch. Holtzer gets way high there, trying to gain as much speed as he can, but ended up losing time on it. And so now they're into turns 3 and 4 coming off the turn. Scott Healy is going to take this thing all the way here at the BlueGrass 195. Your winner, Scott Healy.
Statement made for a man with a lot of momentum, and the defending champion is reminding people why he was the champion last season. It was a picture-perfect run through the postseason, and he's starting to recreate that through 2 of the 7 races here in the playoffs.
Huge race for Scott Healy, not just for the points, not just for the victory, but also for the psyche going forward, knowing that he can put this thing in victory lane.
We got a nice little 3-car train here with this little shove of teammates making their way through 3 and 4.
Always having fun on the track. That is the whole point.
Honestly, the way that they're doing that, I'm almost wondering if Scott Healy was out of gas.
It looks like it. It looks like he is completely out of fuel.
And that was the thing I was saying with being able to pit a lap later because the lucky dog working out for James Holtzer. It was a lap away from being the ultimate moment of getting the lucky dog back at the perfect time. But Scott Healy, just enough to make that work. Can't even get to the line to finish the victory lap, but it was enough for the 64 and the defending champ.
Absolutely unreal race with a great finish. A lot of fun to see that, but let's see if we can get a few of these guys. Actually, let's check out the results first. Let's do that first as Scott Healy keeps going on his donuts out there. Keep going, buddy. Keep going. Keep
nailing him.
He's got it, man. Those are perfect donuts. Scott Healy from Reedy Motorsports will take first. James Holtzer second, and it looks like his teammate Kyle Benson just content to just try to burn out near him, basically. So James Holtzer in second, Seth Berger in third for Tank Racing, Dalton Tucker in fourth for Rev Racing, and Timothy Latham rounds out your top 5.
In 6th place, and one of the big winners tonight points-wise is going to be Reese Schaefer. Kyle Benson also making a good run towards the top 10 in the point standings with a 7th place finish. Austin Reedy will wind up in 8th. Dean Brummett, bubble driver, entering tonight, will be in 9th. Craig Lautenslager will round out the top 10.
11th place, Scott Kalal for Rev Racing. Michael Politis brings up 12th place. Joshua Balliet for Tank Racing in 13th. Emerson Ardon from Tank Racing in 14th. And Byron McDonald for Rev Racing is your 15th place driver.
16th place will be Landon Lacey, doing a little bit of damage control with some heavy damage that he picked up on that first caution. 17th place is going to go to the playoff lucky dog, and that's Max Service. Raul Meza will be in 18th. Jordan Sailors in 19th. David Duke in 20th, and then just because we only had 2 others here, Travis Trevelyan in 21st, Gabriel Ellison in 22nd. Both of those 2 had server issues tonight, though, had very, very short nights.
All right. Well, again, another great race here in the Cup Series. But let's see if we can't bring Seth Berger up into the booth and figure out how his race went. Seth, this is Sean and Brandon up in the booth, man. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, buddy, tell me about your race. You were back there in 3rd place. You're already in the playoff top 10 for coming into this week. What was your strategy in this race?
Don't wreck, man. These cars with the aero package, man, you got to run so tight to try to make up spots or hold positions, man. Every week I stress about being taken out or causing a wreck myself. So the fact that I finished third place is amazing, man. I was just trying to top 10 my way through here, man, but I'll take these runs. It's awesome, man. I haven't had a top 5 run in a while.
Well, you definitely came at the right time. Puts you in a really good position going forward for next week's race at Auto Club, that cutoff race. How do you feel about that Fontana 2-mile track and closing out this opening round?
It definitely makes me a lot more comfortable, so hopefully I can race with a lot more confidence, you know. They always say you got to race with confidence, or if you're running too scared, you're going to drop spots like that. So the fact that I got a better buffer here, I think I might be able to run a little bit better next week.
Well, we know that Tank Racing has the bye in the first round. Has your team looked forward to the second round as far as the team championship is concerned?
Honestly, not yet. We're just, kind of taking it a race at a time. Main priority is getting strong finishes here, and, strong finishes will take care of that point battle itself.
Well, man, great job out there tonight. Who would you like to thank before we let you get back to your team?
I'd just like to shout out Liftworks. Huge thanks to them and Dan DeStagio and Marty for sponsoring this team. They've helped us a lot this season, funding-wise, and want to be able to do this without them. They give us a lot of freedom, paint scheme-wise, and all that. And all these other sponsors, can't thank them enough. Chicago Heights, Healthcare Billing, Raise Energy, Hunter Don, Butcher Box, Teespring, Common Sense, and all my Tank Racing teammates. Me and Reese are having a ball up there, man. We're working together. And I think it takes a lot of teamwork to stay up front in these cars.
It definitely does, and there was a lot of teamwork working out there tonight. Congratulations on third place. We'll get you back down to your team, and we will see you next week as we head into Auto Club.
Thank you, and congrats to Scott.
All right, we will drop him down into his booth, and then let's see if we can't get James Holtzer up here, who... I can't wait to hear exactly how his race went, because he was all over the map tonight. James Holtzer, welcome up to the booth with Sean and Brandon. Got to ask you first and foremost, what happened on that pit stop that made you come back down pit road again?
That'll be up to admin discussion on what was going on. There was some inside stuff going. But nonetheless, we made a great recovery with a good timed caution. I feel like we really had the car to beat, as we led that first run. The whole way through, and then, like I said, had no fuel checked, and then once we got to that caution there, just had the race for the lucky dog, which everybody that was lap down was damaged, so that benefited us. I was riding, I was like, well, maybe I can just drive up and get the lap back naturally, so drove back up there, and then I was just content riding right where I was behind Scott at that point. And then that caution come out, we got the lucky dog, and drove back up through again. I just needed one more. I absolutely killed my right front coming up through the pack, and just pushing hard to try to get Scott's draft. And once I got it, my stuff was gone. He saved just enough. But nonetheless, P2, after all the circumstances, like you said, being all over the map all race, I'll take it.
And you look pretty good to be locked in for that round of 10, I think, points-wise, just doing the table math with the second place tonight. How's that affect what you want to do going forward with Auto Club and that cutoff race, probably having a whole lot less pressure on you next week?
Yeah, no pressure going in next week. Just got to, keep moving forward, and once these points reset for the next rounds, really when we got to limit the mistakes moving forward. One like tonight, even if it's in your doing or not, but... Yeah, just got to limit the mistakes and, just try to race yourself around those guys that are going to be racing for that top 5 and do what we can to get to Atlanta.
All right, man. Well, you've been in this position multiple times before. Who would you like to thank?
Always got to thank you guys up in the booth for doing a fantastic job week in and week out. Friends, family, everybody goes back and watches. Everyone enjoys watching everything. Got to thank all the guys on Next Level Motorsports for being here. I know a couple of them couldn't make it out this week. Gabe just chose not to run because he can't run next week and won't be there in the position to go and already had prior obligations. But I know Landon had some damage there, but he salvaged what he could out of it, and Latham had a really good run as well. Just got to thank everybody on the car from JP Designs. Go check them out on Facebook, starting at $5 a scheme. Butt Kicker, Laurel Auto Group, Raise Energy. And yeah, it's been a blast, and the season's flying by. I know we say it all the time, but I'm really looking forward to crunching down here at the end of the season.
Well, man, great job out there tonight with the P2, but we'll see you next week as we get to Auto Club.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And so we will drop him back down into his Discord channel, and let's see if we can't find the champ. Let's get the champ up here right now. Scott, Healy, Sean, and Brandon up in the booth, buddy. Congratulations. Excellent race out there tonight.
Sean, I was waiting for this moment to talk to you all season long. How you been, bud?
Man, I've been good. It's good to talk to you again. I feel like we haven't talked since we went to Nashville together.
Absolutely, man. It's been a while, but it's good to talk to you again.
Hey, man, great race out there. I mean, started off towards the front to begin. Actually, you started off in ninth, actually. So, but worked your way up through the pack, and once you got up to the front, just would not let that thing go. How was your race tonight?
Man, it was great. Everything laid out perfectly as planned. When I got to the lead, I just stayed cool, calm, and collected. A couple of restarts were a little iffy when I started in second, but I mean, I worked my way up and gained a couple spots and made it to P1 at the end of the race, man.
Well, one thing we were talking about earlier tonight when we were watching you move up towards the front is that, you know, just the calm style behind the wheel, how much it works during the playoffs. And it really has that feel that you're recreating that same energy that you had last year during the postseason. Do you feel that yourself, that you got that similar momentum from that championship run last year going right now?
Oh, absolutely. Every little bit, man. In the post races, it's like, I'll feel how it goes. But then when it comes to playoff, and I'm in a playoff, it's I'm just keep eating it up, man.
Well, man, keep on eating out there. You're doing a great job just still defending that championship. And, I mean, so many times we have a champion, and then the very next season there's kind of a fall-off. There has been no fall-off from you at all. So great job on that. Who would you like to thank here tonight before we let you get back to celebrating your win with no fuel?
Man, I like to thank everyone in SRN, my team, Reedy Racing or Murray Media Motorsports, everyone back home, friends, family, as well as a couple of my Discord buddies that I talk to every night. So I'd like to give them a thanks to all of them, as well as National Lumber, Quikrete, and Valvoline for tonight.
Well, man, we sincerely enjoyed seeing you back at the front of the pack. We also enjoyed your attempt at a burnout. I know you were completely out of fuel there at the end, which just goes to show excellent math there for the race, and way to bring it home, brother.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for spotting me, man. Appreciate it. He knows who I'm talking to.
Yeah, man, I got you. All right, buddy. Well, have a great night. Congratulations once again on first place. We'll see you next week as we get into Auto Club.
Awesome. Have a good night, guys.
All right, buddy. All right, so we've dropped him back down into his chat, and let's talk about next week. Auto Club Speedway, the Golden State 200, next week, October 31st. It's Halloween night. We could have gone something scarier, couldn't we?
Yeah, I'm not too sure off the top of my head what I could have gone with name-wise on that on a Halloween night, but it's going to be a spooky night for 6 guys that are going to be eliminated. There's a tie-in right there. I gotcha. As they're going to have our cutoff race, so we're going to be narrowing this playoff field down from 16 to 10. And after tonight's race, there's going to be about 5 guys real comfortable going into Auto Club, but there's probably going to be about 10, 11 guys that are in real precarious position on if they're going to be able to advance, and it's going to be trick or treat for them to that night.
Definitely. And now the first race we have at Auto Club is coming up on Wednesday. It's the Truck Series as they get into their second week of the playoffs. Remember, we had that iRacing glitch and we still haven't recovered from it. But October 27th at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Definitely do not miss this race because those Truck Series guys are trying to position their way into that top 10 as well.
Yeah, they're going to be in the same position that the Cup guys were tonight, and where it's going to be one of those, you're either putting yourself in a great position or you're putting yourself in a real dangerous one going forward. They're going to have their cutoff race, I believe it's at Indianapolis, the way that the schedule works out for them now. Apologize if I'm wrong on that one, but that's going to be another tricky track that these guys are going to have to navigate on their cutoff race, so Auto Club even more important for that middle race.
Well, when it gets tricky, when it gets treaty, when it goes out there and gets a little bit scary, you know what you do, Brandon? You always go faster.